welcome to Smashterpieces, a casual walk through the history of the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate roster. My name is Joe.
And my name is Matt.
And if you're new here, what we are doing on this show is we are playing one game for every character in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate from 1984's Duck Hunt to 2019's Fire Emblem Three Houses. And today's game is representing fighter number 67, King K. Rool. It is the 1999, the final game of the 90s. We end that decade with this game.
Happy New Year!
Donkey Kong 64.
So
I hear that you really enjoyed it. Word on the street is it's your new favorite video game.
I would like to say up front that I am not in the business of trying to tell people that they shouldn't enjoy stuff. And if I had just happened to play this game on my own time, then I would just leave it behind me and move on with my life. That's how it would be. I would not say another word of it to you. I would just live and let live. But of course, this is a podcast about discussing these video games that we're playing and talking about how we felt about them. So I must be honest with my opinions on this show. So I am not telling you or anyone how they should feel about this game, and do not wish to diminish any way that you may feel about it. But I have no idea what on earth you can possibly see in this game.
I was 7 years old. That's what I see in this game. That's the answer to your question. I was 7 years old in 1999, and I got it and it came with my Nintendo 64. And so, despite this game's many flaws, I adore this game, despite this game's many banana-shaped flaws.
So, Donkey Kong 64, a collectathon platformer made by Rare, following up Banjo-Kazooie.
Which, I might just add real quick, I think we sort of covered it back in the Donkey Kong Country episode, but it is worth mentioning that this game came out in what is generally considered Rare's golden age. The N64, Rare was was one of, if not the most respected Western developer in the industry. They were releasing hit after hit on the 64, including some games that are still considered multiplayer mainstays now, like Perfect Dark and GoldenEye, and they made Diddy Kong Racing and the Banjo games, and just Rare was a very big deal in the late 90s.
And frankly, not even Donkey Kong 64 was received poorly in the 90s.
Donkey Kong 64 has a Metacritic score of 90.
Yeah. Nintendo Power named it Game of the Year. It was received very well at the time.
Rare was a very, very big deal developer, and we will play one more game by Rare for the entirety of this show. We play Banjo-Tooie in a couple games from now, and then we're done with Rare.
Because Nintendo threw them under the bus and left them to die.
Pretty much. We'll get into more of that when we actually get to Banjo-Tooie, because that feels like the more natural place to talk about the downfall of Rare. And I think personally that they are in an era currently of climbing back up to prominence. They've been doing pretty all right lately. But yeah, that is that. I just wanted to say and make sure for anybody that was too young to know this at the time, because this was 20 years ago. Rare was a big deal in the late 90s.
IGN called DK64 Rare's War and Peace.
I don't know what that means.
It's long.
I like the game, and I don't know what that fucking means.
It's long.
But it's not that long. I mean, it's
a lot. So the thing about the collectathon genre, it's about going around and getting all of these things. And people often focus on how many things there are in Donkey Kong. Every level has 25 golden bananas. There's 201 golden bananas in the game in total. Every level has 500 regular bananas, adding up to over 3,000. There's a lot of stuff, but I don't feel that the amount of things in the game is the problem. I definitely don't think that it's really in the game's favor, because I do think there's too much, but it's not the thing that really kills the game for me. The thing that, like, I believe is actually game ruining, like, takes this game from what I would consider all right to actually being like one of my least favorite games I've ever played, is the tag barrel and the way that switching between characters works. Because among those 25 golden bananas and 500 regular bananas in every level, you can only get 1/5 of them at any given time, because not only are they specifically for the specific 5 characters, but also if you're not currently playing as the character that a banana is meant for, then you can't pick it up at all. You can literally be standing right next to it. You can walk over it as though you were collecting it, but it's just grayed out. It's transparent, and you're just not allowed to pick it up. And everything in the game that has any real value is like this. The golden bananas are like this. The regular bananas are like this. The blueprints are like this. And I would walk into a new level and just end up in an existential panic as I look around, and within like a 3-foot radius, I would see a red banana balloon, a green blueprint enemy, a string of blue bananas, and a button for DK's coconut gun. And just know, oh, I'm going to be coming back here over and over and over. And it's just a matter of I don't even know how to begin to approach levels, because I have to do everything so many times. And I remember in Angry Aztec, in that one temple where you get into it by like shooting the gun buttons, and you go in as each Kong, and there's not a tag barrel in there. You have to leave and come back and go back into the temple as the correct Kong to get all of the segmented pickups that are in there. And it's not even like, oh, you go into this room as Diddy Kong and then this room as Tiny Kong. Like, there's something for more than one Kong in every single room. H-Bomber Guy talked about this game in his video about speedrunning, and I feel like his quote about it is really applicable. He can feel his cells dividing as he thinks about the task ahead of him. And that feeling never went away for me. And that is the single biggest reason why I have no desire to ever play this game again.
I do definitely think if this game was made in a modern day, the only 2 changes I personally think they really have to make is make the bananas for everybody, just one type of banana. And then also, obviously, you can't switch characters on the fly because this game came out in fucking 1999. Like, that's just not something you could do in 1999. But that is definitely something you could do today. And that is also something I think would be changed. I know that you were talking about, like, you wish we could have played a modded version of this game because you found a mod that just made it so that you didn't need to use the tag barrel to switch characters.
It would have been a substantially better game if I could do that. Because I do not mean to exaggerate when I feel like it is game ruining the way that it is set up. Because it's not even like there are certain things that certain characters are the only ones that they can really do for most of the time. It's just, you can get every character to this banana, but it's not for them.
I personally don't think any of those problems are as glaring, but I fully know that it's because when I played this game and got to know this game intimately, I was 7, and you have a lot more patience for bullshit when you're 7 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And that nostalgia never really left me. So in my opinion, DK64 is very good, but only if you play it with the right mindset. And unfortunately, that mindset is the exact opposite mindset that the game openly encourages, which is a strike at the game. 100%. So like when I was watching you play, it would be like, you would see something and then you would sigh and go directly back to the tag barrel and grab that character, and then see something else and head directly back to the tag barrel and go get it. And for me, because I have been playing this game for 20 years, I have hit the mindset where it's like, I'll come get it later. I'm going to do what I can do as this character right now, and then I'll come get it later. I will admit that is a really hard mindset to get into with a game like this.
And the reason that I felt that I couldn't do that was because, it's just impossible to keep a mental tally of what you have and have not collected. If I wasn't doing it the way that I was doing, where it's like, okay, I see something and I instantly go back to the tag barrel. The only other way that I could have done it was do an entire lap through the entire level as one Kong, and then do that exact same thing, the entire level as every other Kong. Because it's just with 500 bananas and 25 golden bananas in every level, not to mention like all of the gates and roadblocks that need to be opened with different Kongs. It's just, it's impossible for me to especially on a first playthrough, to efficiently understand what I should be doing at any given time. It's overwhelming. And I got into this problem in Creepy Castle, where to fight the boss, you needed 400 bananas. So, every Kong had to get most of their bananas, because there's only 500 in the entire level. I started to think to myself, at this point, I should probably just find a walkthrough. And then I realized, what would I do with a walkthrough? There's 500 bananas. I don't know which ones I do and don't have.
Creepy Castle is definitely, I think, because I also ran into the exact same problem you did, which was, oh my god, I have 5 bananas left. I can't fucking find any. Where the hell are all the bananas? Oh my god. Oh my god. And it took me a lot longer to get out of Creepy Castle. It's really weird because I think Creepy Castle is the best laid out of all the levels, and yet, because it requires such a large portion of the level's bananas, that throws the fact that it is the best laid out level in the trash. I honestly overall really like the level design and everything that's not Gloomy Galleon, because Gloomy Galleon can eat my ass and has held the position of most eligible to eat my ass since 1999. That level sucks. That level is actually even if you made the fixes that would improve this game, Gloomy Galleon still sucks immensely. Stop putting swimming levels in your 3D games. Stop it. Stop it. They all suck.
We eventually figured out how to make good swimming levels in 3D.
Did we?
15 years later.
Did we?
Yeah, I would say so.
I've yet to play one.
Skyward Sword is pretty good with it. Too bad we're not playing it on this show.
Yeah. I think this game has a lot of charm to it. The characters are very expressive and well used, and everybody has their own voice and their own personality. And this is also the only game in which Donkey Kong has voice acting. Well, the first game in which Donkey Kong has voice acting by a real person. I guess in Returns, that is probably a person, I assume. But it's the only game where K. Rool has a voice, for sure.
Yeah, and it's weird that he's just explicitly voiced. And he sounds nothing like he does in the cartoon.
He's voiced that one time. He's voiced in the opening cutscene, which is the only voiced cutscene in the entire fucking game.
And it's weird that it also doesn't have subtitles.
Yeah, it doesn't have subtitles.
I don't think the bitrate is good enough to confidently know what he's saying.
And every single cutscene after that is no voice acting, but subtitles. And it's just a really bizarre thing. Also, that opening cutscene is way too long. Holy shit, it's way too long. Every time I play it, and it's unskippable. But, I think the characters all move around just fine overall. Because, they're all just... This is built on the Banjo-Kazooie engine. It was only so bad the 3D platforming can get when it's built on Banjo-Kazooie, which is still a pretty alright 3D platformer.
And by and large, I would say that this really is a reskinned Banjo-Kazooie game.
Oh yeah, 100%.
There is no point A from point B that will satisfyingly get you from Donkey Kong Country to Donkey Kong 64.
One of the levels is even a reused, cut level from Banjo-Kazooie. Funky Forest was a level that was meant for Banjo-Kazooie, and you can kind of tell, because the art style is just a little bit off. You can definitely see where some of the abilities came directly from Banjo-Kazooie, like the ground pound. Donkey Kong's never had a ground pound before. Obviously, Banjo and Kazooie only had a ground pound because Mario has a ground pound. But, you can definitely see that came from Banjo-Kazooie. Lanky's Orangutan, that is just Talon Trot.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's just a slightly slower Talon Trot.
The guns are all just shooting eggs.
Yeah, pretty much. And speaking of abilities, so abilities are another thing where if I were playing this nowadays, I would probably have a lot more of a problem with it if I hadn't played it back a long time ago. Every character has a lot of abilities, and some of them you start to see like, oh, you guys were running out of ideas, but this character still needed an ability, huh?
They ran out of ideas real quick. Not gonna lie. Every character has that one ability of theirs that's like pretty cool, and then the rest of them are just like, what? I think if an ability isn't explicitly called out in the DK rap, then it's super lame.
So every character has an ability that they can do just on the overworld. Sometimes it requires context, most of the time it doesn't. They all have a barrel ability. They all have a pad ability. For the regular overworld ability, I think the main standout of like, oh man, you guys ran out of ideas for this one, is DK's with the lever pulling.
Oh yeah.
Like that one is clearly the dumbest one. Then you have the barrel ability, which honestly, I think they're all fine. I think all of those are fine. They all feel very unique to the characters.
I think it's a little lame that DK's barrel ability isn't really an ability, it's just a mini game.
Well, no, his barrel ability is the, you're thinking of his pad ability.
Oh, his pad ability, yeah.
His barrel ability is invincibility.
Oh yeah, the one that I, don't think I ever genuinely used.
It's used, 3 times in the whole game.
And, every time that, you're supposed to use it, I found that it was faster to just tank the damage instead of going to find the crystal coconuts.
So I think that's probably the closest to you guys running out of ideas. It's either that or, what does Lanky get? He gets Orangutan, but now he moves really fast. Except I kind of really like that one because the song is dumb, but fun. And then you have the pad abilities, which I think the actual dumbest pad ability for sure is Tiny's.
Oh, yeah.
Because Tiny's is just, what if we made a banana port pad that only Tiny could use?
I mean, Chunky's also isn't great, to be honest, but yeah, Tiny's is bad.
Chunky's at least feels like it does something, but Tiny's is an ability that every character already had, except you made a version of it that only she can do for no reason. So that's the one that I point to when I'm like, oh, they were running out of ideas for abilities real quick. Turns out maybe giving every character, 5 characters, 3 abilities each, probably wasn't the best idea. Though I think Tiny's is probably my favorite overworld ability simply because of how it's used in her boss fight. Even though that boss fight used to kick my ass as a child.
The spin?
Yeah, I think her ponytail twirl is nice. I like Orangutan, even though just like Talon Trot, it gets very annoying. Honestly, that's about it. Chunky's big punch is kind of satisfying, but you only ever use it to punch stuff over.
Yeah, I don't really like it as a gate for progression, because it's just let's switch back to Chunky.
I consistently forget that Diddy has Chimpy Charge.
Yeah, no, same.
I consistently forget that's one of his abilities, and it's the first fucking ability he gets in the game.
I wish that, Chunky's punch was better in combat, because as it is, everything in this game just takes too many hits. Way too many hits.
Most things die in one hit if you hit them with a running attack.
I don't agree with that.
I can tell you for sure that is the case, everything except for the Casplat.
I don't agree with that.
I'm telling you this for a fact. The combo, yes. The 3-hit combo is fucking worthless. It won't kill anything immediately.
I can tell you for sure those guys carrying the big spike clubs sure don't die in one hit.
Oh, you don't, the only way to kill those is with the shockwave. They're the worst enemy in the game.
That's not the only way to kill them. It just takes forever to do it otherwise.
Shockwave kills them in one hit, but they're genuinely the worst enemy in the game, I feel. I agree, though. I do wish that Chunky's punch did more. I don't know. There's a lot of abilities in this game where I'm like, you could have figured out something better. The lever pulling, surely you could have figured out something better. Anything better. I don't know what, but you could have figured out something. Other than, this potion gives DK the ability to, I don't know, if he sees a lever, he can pull it. Cool. Cut it and print it. Ship the game.
How many levers are there? Either not enough or too many. I can't decide.
I genuinely can't think of any levers outside of... So most of them are in Frantic Factory, and then I think there's one set of levers in Fungi Forest. And then past that, I can't actually think of a single other instance of levers at all anywhere in the game. So, good ability. It's used that many times. Pretty sure Tiny's Monkey Port can only be used in 3 levels total. One of them being to get to Hideout Helm. But yeah, I like this game. I like this game despite knowing that all of these are valid flaws and very big flaws. And if this game were to come out in the year of our Lord 2020, it would be destroyed critically, and it would deserve to get destroyed critically. Like, I'm not gonna let my love, my rose-colored glasses block the fact that this is not a great game in any way. Like, I enjoy it, I love it, I think it's good but flawed, but like, there's a lot that's very difficult to love about this game. In fact, most of this game is very difficult to love.
I would agree with that much.
But I like the boss fights. I like the boss fights in this game a lot, except for King Cutout.
4 of them are just wait around while the boss shoots at you until it stops shooting at you so you can hit it.
I mean, to be fair, that's a lot of boss fights back in that era.
I know, and they're all bad. That's why Twin Rova's the worst boss in Ocarina of Time.
That's true. But at least you're moving around during these bosses. Twin Rova, you're literally just standing in place.
Twin Rova's so bad.
But, like, I really like... The first 2 bosses, take it or leave it, I don't care. They're both the same. They're the same boss with a different skin. But, like, I like Mad Jack a lot. He is my favorite boss in the game. Puff Toss is neat, even though he is built around a mechanic that you then never ever use again for the rest of the game.
Yeah, and that's, like, weirdly the best boss in the game.
I disagree. I think he's one of the more boring bosses of the game, but...
I loved that boss.
I do have a good time with him.
I feel like it was the boss where I was actively doing the most, and I felt like it was really fun. But also, yeah. What?
Yeah, it's just like, here's this mechanic. You want to drive a boat? You will never do this again. Ever.
And also, it's the boss where I start to think, like, okay, is it really necessary for every boss to be locked to a specific Kong?
Well, Mad Jack and then the boss after the boss of Fungi Forest are the only 2 that really feel like they use that Kong's ability. Like, they're the ones that actually feel like they were made for that Kong.
2 out of 8 bosses ain't a great track record, I think.
Because, like, I like the rematch with Dogadon because it's really stressful. The second half, because at first it just seems like, oh, it's just going to be the same fucking boss. We're just fighting the same boss. This is lame. And then he starts making the platform sync, and the music starts speeding up, and the whole boss changes, and you're like, well, I guess this is life now. Here we go. And I really, really enjoy that boss a lot, simply because of the stress.
I think it would have been cooler if, like, instead of it only being built around Chunky's ability, like, give... this is asking a lot of a Nintendo 64 game, but, like, give everyone something they could have done. Like, have Tiny climb up him, like Shadow of the Colossus, or like have Diddy fly around, shoot him with the jetpack, stuff like that. Have DK pretend that his barrels matter.
That's why I think the final boss of this game is very, very successful as the final boss of this game, because it is specifically alright, each phase is a different Kong, and it's generally gonna be built around, unless it's Lanky's phase, it's generally going to be built around them using the abilities you've been using all game, and each one makes sense that, yeah, it's this character that would be doing this phase. It makes sense. Except for Lanky's, who could literally be anybody. He uses an ability that you legit have not used the whole game because he just gets it. Like, being able to stretch his arms that far is not something he has been able to do the entire game up to that point.
Yeah, like, I remember when I was fighting that boss, I was like, this is not his normal range.
Yeah, that is my least favorite part. I don't know how they could have fixed it. I don't know what they would have done.
Give Lanky better abilities.
I mean, I think Lanky's suite of abilities is overall the strongest suite of abilities. It's just not great for a boss fight.
That's fair.
Admittedly. He's really good for traversal. He's very not great for boss. But otherwise, like, as Tiny, you're getting small and going into his shoe and causing me to have sympathy pains for King K. Rool. That part of the boss causes me physical pain. I don't like watching it. Or like DK, you're doing the barrel blast stuff. Or Diddy Kong, you're getting into his really badly controlling jetpack. The jetpack controls so bad. That jetpack controls so fucking badly.
Oh, yeah, it does.
Oh my god, it controls like ass. It like, there's no sense of momentum.
There is, but only in really specific circumstances.
And they're usually the exact circumstances where you actually don't want momentum at this point, Diddy.
So the way that it works is that when you're actively using the jets, which by the way are exclusively sending you upwards, then you have full horizontal control. And then once you let go of the jets, then it's pure momentum. You have no control. It's just the trajectory that you're going in is the trajectory you're going in.
Yep. And I hate it. I hate controlling the jetpack.
It's quite terrible.
I avoid it at all times. And then Hideout Helm is like, hey, you want to fly in a circle through all these stars while you're on a timer? And I'm like, no, I don't. And the game says, well, do it though. But like it makes sense that he would be using the jetpack and his guns to knock down lights in his phase. And then like Chunky is doing the big punch, getting big and doing the big punch and all that. For the most part, that boss is very successful at, all right, use all the skills you have gained throughout the whole game. Fight K. Rool. And as you put it, by the time you fight K. Rool, the threat is gone. You've already turned off the Blastomatic.
Yeah, you're just going in out of spite.
Yeah, you're going to kick his ass off your island for spite at that point.
Not only that, you're dragging him back down to the island just to fight him.
Yeah, he was leaving. He was on his way. He was running away. And then you have K. Lumsy knock it out of the sky. I guess we should explain how the final boss is. And I guess we never explained like the plot of the game, which is negligible. It's a 3D platformer. The plot doesn't really matter all that much, but it's K. Rool shows up and he has a big laser and he's going to shoot DK Island and destroy it. You got to stop him.
That's the final smash.
Yeah, it's legitimately what his final smash is based on. The Blastomatic is his final smash, and I still think that's super cool. And the final boss, after you go through the last level, Hideout Helm, K. Rool runs away like a bitch. Gets in a ship and flies away. But if you've gotten the final key for the character K. Lumsy, who is a giant Kremling who was locked up because he refused to stomp on DK Island because he didn't want to kill the monkeys because he's actually a softie. And boy, we'll get to that in a second. I have a rant about that shit. If you get the final key, K. Lumsy knocks down his ship and then he can jump at the ship, and then there's a boxing match, which is the most loosely, it's a boxing match because it takes place in a boxing ring and K. Rool is wearing boxing gloves, and that's the only reason it's a boxing match, because you sure ain't boxing.
Until it inexplicably becomes a Punch-Out reference.
Oh yeah, Chunky's would be a Punch-Out reference, wouldn't it? With that,
it's like literally the bald bull fight.
Yeah, interesting. I never caught on to that. That's a good point.
I didn't either. I had to be told about it.
Huh. Neat. All right, here's where, even as somebody that loves this game, because this is why I think this is the game's biggest misstep, because even somebody like me who loves this game hates this aspect. In order to get the final key to fight the final boss, you need to get two items called the Rareware coin and the Nintendo coin. The game never mentions this. Well, it mentions the Rareware coin in Cranky mentions it, but it never mentions that these items are 100% required if you want to beat the game.
And also, it doesn't tell you where to get them.
So, well, it tells you where to get the Rareware coin once you get the stuff to get it.
Doesn't tell you where to get the Nintendo coin.
It sure doesn't. So where do you get these? Well, At the very beginning of the game, Cranky tells you that if you get 15 banana medals, then he has a reward for you. Now, a banana medal is something you get for collecting 75 bananas with one Kong. Every Kong can get one in every level, meaning that there are... I'm not even going to do the math right now. There's 5 per level. You do the math yourself. I don't care.
And frankly, that's not a hard thing to do. You basically have to get 5 to finish, Creepy Castle. You get 5 for free at the end of Hideout Helm, and then, like, it's so easy to just happen to get 5 more throughout the game.
Yeah. Honestly, my strategy has always been go back to Jungle Chapes and just clean that level out, because all the bananas and golden bananas are fucking piss easy to get.
Mm-hmm. And then you basically got it for free.
And then he will unlock the game Jetpack. Jetpack was a game for the ZX Spectrum, which was a gaming PC that was only popular in the United Kingdom and fucking nowhere else. Well, I assume it came out here, it just nobody here cared. So, this game is a game for that system that was developed by the company Ultimate Play the Game, which is what Rareware would eventually, like, spawn out of. It was their very first game that they ever released, mainly designed and created by Tim and Chris Stamper, who were the two of the founders of Rare. And it sucks.
I kind of like Jetpack.
It's not hard, but it's not fun.
I don't know. I feel like for what it was pretty good.
I guess, but making it required to beat this game sucks a lot. To get the Rareware coin, you have to score 5,000 points in Jetpack and then pick up the coin in-game, which you almost didn't grab. I'm glad you were doing that part on stream so we could let you know, because otherwise you wouldn't have realized it until you were already at the end of Hideout. And that would have sucked. Because I always forget that you need to pick it up in-game.
It wouldn't have been the worst. Jetpack's fun.
But Jetpack is the part I have the least amount of problems with. So how do you get the Nintendo coin? Well, in Frantic Factory, there is a Donkey Kong arcade cabinet where you play the original Donkey Kong. And when you beat it, you get a golden banana. And then, and only then, Squawks tells you, now that you're warmed up, how about we make the game harder? And you play it again, this time for a special prize. And so you play it again. Now it costs 2 coins to play, which, fuck that. As DVD Smith, a friend of the show, pointed out, that essentially potentially means that you could soft lock yourself into never beating this game. Because potentially if you fail enough times, you will run out of coins.
Nice. That's cool.
That sucks a lot, which granted, that has to be the only reason that you can get as many coins as you can, because the amount of coins that you can collect in this game are roughly 200% more than you will ever need to get everything in the game that costs coins. Coins essentially become completely worthless after a certain amount of time.
On the bright side, this was, at the time, by far the best emulation of arcade Donkey Kong ever.
And, like, arcade Donkey Kong is still a pretty alright game. But, again, as a golden banana, as just a golden banana that you can get, that's a pretty neat Easter egg. Because if you play it and you don't like it, you can just not do it. That's one of the strengths of this game, I think, is that to beat the game, to get into Hideout Helm, which is the last golden banana gate, you only need 100 golden bananas, and as you mentioned before, there are 200 in the game. So you only need 50% of those to get through, which what that allows you to do is if you hit a golden banana and it fucking sucks, you can just walk away. You don't have to do it. And I appreciate that at the very least.
Yeah, and Donkey Kong Arcade is not a problem as a game, really. It's a good arcade game. It's tough, but, like, it's a quarter muncher game, you know, and you get good at it, you get better at it. It's a score attack game, that's the point. But it's a completely different skill set from Donkey Kong 64. So, making it not only required to beat the game to finish Donkey Kong 64, but you also have to finish, like, a hard mode of it. this game with a completely different skill set. Like, imagine if, like, in Dark Souls, like, you spend all this time grinding through these difficult bosses, and you build up this skill set, and then you're on your way to the final boss of Dark Souls, and then it says, okay, now you gotta play Armored Core.
That is my biggest issue with Donkey Kong 64, personally, is that single Easter egg goes from, that's pretty cool, to, nah, fuck you, fuck this, I hate this.
Wasn't it also low-key not authorized by Nintendo?
As far as I remember, the story is essentially, they didn't ask, they just put it in the game. So, that's neat. But that's, I don't think I have anything else to say about the game itself.
Should we talk about the memory leak?
Ah, yes. So this game infamously shipped with the expansion pack. It's the only game that shipped with the Nintendo 64 expansion pack, which was a RAM expansion for the Nintendo 64 to give it a little bit more memory. There are very few games that require it.
I think Majora's Mask requires it, and that might actually be it.
No, there's one more. I know that Perfect Dark requires it if you want to play the campaign.
Which, by the way, in the slot where you put in the expansion pack, the 64 shipped with what's called a jumper pack. And it's physically, it's built the same way as the expansion pack, and it serves absolutely no function. It is literally just a piece of plastic with like a motherboard on it. It's probably not a motherboard, but I don't know what I'm talking about. And if you take it out, the Nintendo 64 won't run. For no reason. They just made it so that it won't run without this piece of plastic.
Beautiful.
I'm looking at the list right now, and Donkey Kong 64 and Majora's Mask are the only games that 100% require it, and Perfect Dark does require it for the single-player campaign.
And StarCraft 64 requires it for the multiplayer mode, I'm seeing.
Yes. Many games use it, but no other game requires it.
Yeah, they're enhanced. The games I'm seeing listed that are enhanced by the expansion pack but aren't required, I don't recognize a lot of these, like Gauntlet Legends is on here, Pokemon Stadium 2, Resident Evil 2, which is a famously miracle port in the first place. Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, the infamously bad South Park game. So there are some games on there that require it. DK64 shipped with the thing because there is a memory leak in DK64 that Rare never figured out how to fix, either because they just couldn't figure out the cause or because they didn't have time, probably that second one. And they realized that if they plugged in the expansion pack, it took longer for the game to crash, essentially. It took long enough that most people would never play that long to allow the crash to happen.
And we both played on Wii U Virtual Console, where through the use of save states, you are virtually playing in one sitting the entire time. And I made a point never to reset the console, so to speak.
Oh, I reset it every time.
I kept one continuous thing going. And while I never had the game crash, I could feel that it was struggling by the end. Like, it was having a rough time. Like, even just making a save state on the Virtual Console thing took like a full 10 seconds.
Oh, it takes that even without the memory leak. I had the same problem.
Oh, that's funny.
It seems to do that for 64 games in general, because I think Star Fox 64 also took a really long time to do save states for some reason. There's another problem, actually, that I was not aware of until somebody pointed it out to me, because when I have played this game in the past, I played on an actual Nintendo 64. And it turns out that the game is essentially balanced around the fact that the N64 has a lot of slowdown issues, because, like, regardless of feelings on this game, this is an ambitious game for 1999. Like, all the stuff that it's doing and its graphics and all sorts of stuff. This game was doing some stuff that was ambitious for its era. It doesn't seem like much now, but back in 99 and on the 64 of all damn things. So that game has a lot of, like, slowdown, and they balance the game around it. And then the Wii U version doesn't have any slowdown.
Whoops.
And so parts that were explicitly balanced to be like, their difficulty was explicitly balanced around the slowdown being present, are now, like, near impossible. A lot of bonus barrels have been straight up made almost impossible. Like, there's one where somebody pointed out to me, like, oh yeah, you gotta use pause buffering to do this one on Wii U. And then I quit that one because fuck that. Like, I don't think that's a knock on the game, because obviously that was the right choice to do back in that day, in 99.
It's just bad emulation.
But, like, it's not like they could plan for, in 15 years, they're going to put this game on a different system and it's not going to have slowdowns. So, like, they had no way to plan for that. It's just that the Wii U's not very good at doing N64 emulation. Though, granted, N64 emulation is famously really hard to do in general.
Yeah.
It's a console that is not very easy to emulate. Like, even Nintendo struggles with it, apparently. Which is nuts, because they have access to source code. But yeah, I found that really interesting, in terms of playing it on the Wii U.
I believe I heard at some point that this game is, like, infamously very difficult to emulate.
Yes.
Which is why it was such a huge deal when it actually, like, made it to Virtual Console on Wii U.
I think the other theory was that because Jetpack is in the game, and technically Microsoft now owns Jetpack as an IP, which I am sure causes some problems somewhere along the line, because Jetpack is a Rareware property. And so when Microsoft bought them, the rights to Jetpack went to Microsoft.
I mean, it would have been wonderful if they just decided to take it out, too. Just take out that whole thing.
Yeah, but Nintendo back in those, like, back when Virtual Console was starting out, Nintendo had a really strict policy of, like, it has to come out exactly the way it came out on the Nintendo 64, or it doesn't come out at all.
Yeah.
And then eventually they sort of, like, Wave Race came out and replaced the in-game advertisements with new in-game advertisements. And that was about the point where it was like, all right, maybe this won't be maybe we'll do it a little better. All right. I think it's time to jump into the music before we head on to our next game. Because even as somebody that doesn't like this game, come on, soundtrack is great.
It's fine.
It is my favorite work from Grant Kirkhope, personally. Though Banjo-Kazooie really, really gives it a run for its money. Banjo-Kazooie is a fantastic soundtrack. And obviously, we can't start with any other song. This is the song that has to start all discussion of music in Donkey Kong 64. The song that will follow Grant Kirkhope to his grave. It's the DK rap.
Here we go. You're finally here. Performing for you. If you know the words, you can join in too. Put your hands together if you want to clap. As we take you through this monkey rap. DK, Donkey Kong. He's the leader of the bunch. You know him well. He's finally back to kick some tail. His coconut gun can fire in spurts. If he shoots ya, it's gonna hurt. He's bigger.
He'll never live it down.
So our friend Jesse may have cracked the code on why your father thought that the game was broken because of this song. And it's because of the way that it does the skipping and scratching sounds. I mean, it opens going, here we go. And, like, immediately, like, if you're not familiar with, like, DJing and like, this kind of hip-hop at the time, then your mind instantly goes to CDs skipping.
That is a strong theory. But it also assumes that my dad was old enough to not know what was in and hip at the time. My dad was, like, 27 when this game came out. My dad was my age.
That doesn't mean he knows, like, rap and hip-hop.
He listened to it. He listened to some of it. I don't think that was exactly what it was, but that's as close to an explanation as I'll ever get. So you know what? I'll take it. But, like, the song is bad, but it's supposed to be bad.
It's insane that people don't recognize that.
Yeah, at the time, apparently people thought this was an actual serious attempt at them to write, like, a rap, and they had to, like, go out of their way to point out, like, no, guys, we wrote a stupid song. It's bad on purpose. Like, it's a parody.
Have they not, like, did people not see the entire rest of the game? There's a point where you, like, engorge this hippo so that he's fat enough to weigh down a lift. This game is deeply strange and weird.
Like, I believe the line, if he shoots ya, it's gonna hurt, is generally considered one of the worst lines ever written for a song, ever. By some music magazine, some gaming music magazine or some shit. But, like, this song is legitimately supposed to be bad, which is why the Melee version sucks.
But we also got the best line ever written in a song. He has no style. He has no grace. This Kong has a funny face.
This is also the first time that the word hell was ever said in a rated E game.
And it was not retained in the T-rated Smash Melee.
It sure wasn't. And also the Melee version, I'll say it again, is bad. It's a bad version. It's actually a bad version of a bad song. It's a less fun version to listen to because it feels like they were trying to make it a real song, and it was never meant to be a real song.
And later Smash Brothers games would make it even worse because Brawl took all of its returning songs and cut like every song in Brawl is less than 3 minutes because compression's hard, but then they never restored the full version in later games. So in Ultimate, it's still the truncated version. So not only is it a worse version of the DK rap, but we currently have a worse version of the worst version.
So, and I will take that opinion to my grave. The original DK rap is far superior to the Smash Brothers version. But other than that, I think the most notable song from there is probably Grant Kirkhope's take on DK Island Swing, the music for Jungle Japes. I think it's the best version of DK Island Swing in general. Well, I think some Smash versions give it a big run for its money, because this song has been remixed to hell and back in Smash. It's the most well-known Donkey Kong song for a reason.
So I personally kind of think this is one of Grant Kirkhope's weaker soundtracks, and I think that the fact that we're calling out a song he technically didn't write as the best song is like...
Oh, I'm not saying it's the best song, I'm saying it's the most notable.
But what I do think is really outstanding about the soundtrack, and Banjo did this too, but DK64 does it to such a larger extent, is how each song in the game dynamically changes for different areas. So like, even just listening to Jungle Japes right here, there's also a version of it that plays in the caves.
Mm-hmm.
There's a version of it that plays in the stormy area. Every single overworld song in the game also has a version that plays during the boss fight.
Yeah, that's actually my favorite part of the whole soundtrack is the boss versions of every song.
Yeah, and so while I don't necessarily think the compositions in DK64 are that great, I think the overall sound design ideas of how there's so many versions of every single song that dynamically fit every part of the level, that part's really good. And that's a very Grant Kirkhope thing to do. I think overall he kind of like was one of the first people to ever do that in video games.
I think Mario 64 sorta did it, but only in like, when you go underwater, the sound is muffled. And that's it. That's the extent of what they did. But yeah, I think Grant Kirkhope is technically a pioneer in the art of having a dynamic soundtrack. I really, really like the soundtrack of this game. Like, I really dig Frantic Factory in specific. This is my favorite song in the game. I think it's the best song in the game.
I kind of agree with that. Frantic Factory is the one that I was going to call out too. I like it.
Like the music box aesthetic. It manages to make it really creepy. It's a creepier song than the actual level with creepy in the name.
And also, as you get into the more active parts of the level, like, the song also ramps up a lot.
Yeah, there are like 3 different versions of this song. There's one for R&D. And there's also one for the factory area, like the production area. And overall, it's just a really cool piece. I also really, really like the boss music for it, because the Mad Jack fight is one of my favorite songs in the game in general. Just Frantic Factory in general. I really, really, really love that song. But the other boss fight theme that really always stands out to me, even though the boss is just sort of alright, like, it's the most, hey, you want to fight this boss again with one small difference? Okay. But I really like the music for the Crystal Caves boss. Because it takes this, like, really, really calm, relaxing piece and then turns it into what I think is the best boss fight theme in the game in general. Which, I don't know, it feels like an accomplishment in that way. I really, really like that song.
For me to call out one more song, Creepy Castle is pretty good.
I think that Frantic Factory does a better, like I said, I think Frantic Factory does a better job at making a creepy atmosphere.
I agree. Frantic Factory is definitely my favorite Overworld song.
But Creepy Castle is very fun. I have a good time with it. And other than that, I think the only other song that I really want to shout out personally is, I do like the DK Isle theme. I think it's very good.
I agree. It's a good one.
I guess, like, the K. Rool boss fight music is pretty alright. It's not the best boss fight theme in the game, but I mean, we're playing this game for K. Rool. We might as well mention the song that plays when you fight him. I think it's the only boss theme that's not a remix of an Overworld theme. That's really all I got. I don't got anything else.
It's good that Funky Kong was back from his 2 tours in Vietnam.
Yeah, that's a really weird redesign, huh? Also, Candy Kong makes me intensely uncomfortable in this game. And I genuinely don't understand why. Because she's no less her than she is in any other game.
Candy Kong's just, like, kind of an uncomfortable character in general.
A little bit. Rare was not super great at handling female characters in the late 90s. Granted, name me a company that was.
Don't worry. We'll have more to talk about that in Banjo-Tooie.
Oh boy, will we. Boy. And also, Wrinkly Kong is dead. They straight up killed off Wrinkly Kong. And that stayed canon. She's still dead. When she shows up in Donkey Kong games today, she's still a ghost.
That's kind of great.
It's really fucked up. But yeah, I love this game still. I very much appreciate you sticking through it to the end. As far as I can tell, this was your NES era.
Yeah.
This one game was your entire NES era. And I very much appreciate you sticking with it to the end.
I think it was, for sure, my least favorite game that we've played. And I feel I must state, while saying that, that I did not hate Ice Climber as much as you did.
Oh, I hated Ice Climber. Ice Climber is the worst game I've ever played in my life. I would rather die than ever play Ice Climber ever again.
Yeah, but Ice Climber was only 2 hours. This was 10 times as long.
I would rather replay Earthbound than play Ice Climber. Alright. I think we've gotten out enough. There was significantly less fist fighting in this episode than I expected. That's good. So we should probably move on to our next game, huh? And that game is representing fighter number 39, King DDD. It is the 2000 Nintendo 64 game, Kirby 64, The Crystal Shards. And of course, we are not alone for this episode. I don't know why I said of course. You wouldn't know that. I know that. But we do have a guest joining us for this game. Everybody, please welcome one of the 2 people that we essentially call our boss most of the time. All the way from NWR, which I don't know why I said that like it's a faraway land. We're hosted there, technically. Please welcome Neil Ronahan. Welcome to the show, Neil.
Hey, how are you guys doing? I heard Donkey Kong 64 was peaceful, wonderful discussion about a game that you both love.
Yeah, Matt really liked it a lot. It's like his favorite game now. I heard he was going to play it again.
I do like... Did you guys talk about how Funky Kong is like a gun runner in that game?
He's back from 2 tours in Vietnam.
Yes, that did come up.
Like, I mean, we need to sort it out for the Donkey Kong timeline, but I don't know if, like there's, like, the Peace version of Funky Kong. Did he come before or after the events of Donkey Kong 64? Where does the surfboard get involved? Does Charlie surf? I don't know.
How else do you think that Wrinkly Kong died?
Vietnam Funky is from the Hero Dies timeline.
He's from the Donkey Kong Land timeline. So, Kirby 64. I played this game a ton as a child. For a very long time, this was the only Kirby game I had ever played. It is still one of the few. I haven't actually played a whole lot of Kirby games. I've played Adventure, and this one, and then everything after Return to Dreamland. And anything between those two things, I have not touched.
So, you're not really that bad off for not touching anything between Kirby 64 and Return to Dreamland. Not that there aren't good games there, but just that, like, there's basically just this wasteland of Kirby's either, like, weird remakes or kind of questionably bad games, and then experiments. Which, like, Kirby Canvas Curse is super neat and cool, but it's not technically, like, a Kirby platformer, but really the lineage goes, it's like Kirby 64, then the next Kirby platformer is Return to Dreamland.
Well, there's Squeak Squad somewhere in there, too.
That's horrible.
Is it? Oh,
Yeah.
man. I've never touched it.
I was like 9 when I played it, so God knows what quality it is.
Oh, it's almost like being a child helps you get over bad games, huh?
What?
Matthew.
Where do you get that from?
So, I actually really like this game. I got it for Christmas. I don't know why in the world my dad decided to buy me this game of all games, because, like, I mean, it's Kirby, it's super awesome. My dad didn't know that. As far as he was aware, it was a game about a pink blob that probably looked super kiddie. And granted, I was 7.
You were in the demographic.
But, like, it seems really out of character that this of all games was the game my father would get for me. But hey, I'm glad he did. My sister and I used to, like, roleplay the characters during cutscenes. I didn't know Ribbon's name until, like, 10 years later. I don't remember what we called her, but we did not call her Ribbon.
This is one of the first games I, like, remember getting on day one and having a first day experience with. Because I'm same age as you. I was 7 years old at the time, and this is the first game that I was, like, consciously aware of. I am getting this and playing this right away. And I don't know if I've really gone back to it since I was a kid. I think that I haven't played it since, like, that first year.
I have twice since then.
Yeah, for me, I've got a couple of years on you guys, but I would have been 12 when this came out, and I don't think I got it. I don't think I was there on release day, but I definitely got it, like, within a year. Like, maybe it was Christmas in the year 2000, like, that adds up. Like, I can't think of a memorable Christmas gift from that year. And I'm, like, reasonably sure I got it before the GameCube, which that was Christmas 2001.
Yeah, that was not long after.
Yeah, it's weird to think that, like, this game came out and then the GameCube was out almost exactly a year later. It would have been close to 18 months in North America, but, like, actually from the North American release to the first release of the GameCube, it was like 15 months.
And yet somehow we've still got 5 more N64 games on our lineup.
I was about to comment on that. Like, yeah, but like, just in the year 2000 alone, we have 4 games on 64.
There's 5 more N64 games, 6 depending on how you count Animal Crossing.
Yeah. Animal Forest, technically, a Nintendo 64 game, just not here. And really, honestly, the GameCube game is kind of a Nintendo 64 game. It's just on GameCube.
Yeah, can't you take the disc out and the whole game can run just on the GameCube's RAM?
It's something like that. It's weird. But with Kirby 64, like, I had a lot of experience with Kirby before this. Like I do remember I played the heck out of Kirby's Adventure as a kid. That was like I didn't have an NES to call my own until like probably 1994, 1995. It was when my cousin gave it to me, but I played a ton of Kirby's Adventure on that. I think I borrowed Kirby's Dream Land from a friend on Game Boy and was like, why can't you have the copy powers here? And then I played Kirby Superstar over at my friend's house because I did not own a Super Nintendo until like 2002. So that was another one that was from afar. But I definitely put Kirby Superstar on a pedestal just because it was wondrous, because there's like 7 games in this. This is amazing. And like there's one with there's all this dialogue and stuff. So having Kirby 64 come out, it was like, okay, it's the next one after Superstar. I'm excited for it. I have this very vivid memory of like reading Nintendo Power around that time, and there's the power up where I think it's like Electric and Sword.
Yeah, the Darth Maul saber.
Yeah, that's what I have this memory of just being like, oh, you could just be like Darth Maul in this game. How metal is that?
This game came out a year after Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
Which, like, realistically, the way game development works, would that have been intentional?
No, it would not have.
Not at all. It was cool, but I really enjoyed it when I was younger, and then I think over probably like the next handful of years, maybe even the next decade, I kind of worked it into my mind that like Kirby 64, it wasn't Sakurai. So like all he did was voice King Dedede in this. He didn't actually do anything with the game. And Superstar was the pinnacle of the Kirby series to me. And a lot of that was, eventually I did get that Super Nintendo, and then I had Kirby Superstar that I could play on my own. So I did that. And then when this came out, I don't know if it was Wii Virtual Console. There's a chance it might have even been Wii U Virtual Console that I went back to it. That would have. I know Wii U Virtual Console is when I wrote the article that I then turned into a video that not many people watched.
I know that feeling.
But the director of Kirby 64, which I'll probably prattle on a lot more after playing the game as well, Shinichi Shimomura, who is a developer who worked on the Kirby games with Sakurai, and the ones that he did sole direction of that like Sakurai wasn't as involved with were Kirby's Dream Land 2 and 3, and then Kirby 64, the Crystal Shards, and they're kind of slightly different from the Sakurai games. But when I went back and played Kirby 64 sometime in like the late Wii era or Wii U era, I loved it. Like, it's not the same as the other Kirby games, and that's kind of why I like it a lot. Like, there's a weirdness to this game that I really enjoyed, and it's something that, as this series has moved on, it has kind of gone, not even necessarily like it's Sakurai or Shimomura. There's the new generation at HAL Labs that, kind of started with Return to Dreamland, where they're doing their own spin on these kind of games. But it does, like, playing this game kind of made me like, oh yeah, like that was when Kirby was really, really kind of weird and interesting to me, as opposed to the endless experiments he's through now. And Kirby's Dream Land 3 is great. Everybody should play that. I think it's on the Nintendo Switch Online. I really like that game.
I've never played Superstar. Well, Superstar Ultra is our game for Meta Knight, but we won't get to that for a real long time.
Have you never played Ultra either?
No, I've never played Ultra either.
That's surprising. I've never played the original, but I had Ultra.
I'm trying to think. I think Ultra is soundly a better game. I know there's some of those weird ports where it's like, actually, the original had this other mode, but like Ultra I remember playing and really enjoying. And I was someone that was kind of like super into Superstar back in that era, so if there was something that stuck out to it, I probably remember.
It was great because it wasn't afraid to like keep the weirder parts of the original that kind of went away as the series went on. Like it wasn't trying to modernize Superstar; it was trying to be the improved Superstar. Overall, I feel like it's weird for me to think back on Kirby 64, and I don't know, maybe I'll understand more of why it didn't really pan out like this after I've played it, but like I feel like thinking about Kirby 64, it feels like it's the next step for the Kirby franchise, and then every step afterwards until we kind of get that return to form is kind of a step back. Like Amazing Mirror, as much as I think a 4-player co-op Metroidvania is the coolest idea in the world, was definitely a big step down from Crystal Shards. And then Squeak Squad apparently was not very good.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's the kind of thing, like, I guess, like, late GBA and late DS, or I guess with Squeak Squads, that's not necessarily late DS. It reminds me of late 3DS, which is, I mean, just covering it more specifically, like, I'm more aware of what exactly came out. But, like, you had on 3DS where you had, like, Metroid Prime Federation Force and Legend of Zelda Triforce Heroes, which were these, like, cute, like, quirky multiplayer games that if you played them in the right circumstances, they were awesome. If you didn't, what, like, kind of why are you playing the game? And that's what, like, Kirby and the Amazing Mirror and even Four Sword Adventures and Four Sword and everything, like, if you could play that in the right setting, like, I've never played the Amazing Mirror with 4 people, like that game seems really cool in that environment, but I've never gotten a chance, so it's just kind of like a mediocre single-player game to me. And then Squeak Squad, I guess, is just the Hey Pikmin of the DS era.
I've never played a Pikmin game, and yet I still understand exactly what that means.
Although, oh wow, that's developed by Flagship? So that was developed by Capcom? Oh yeah, because so there's that Capcom team that made, like, Oracle Seasons and Oracle of Ages and Minish Cap, and, like, now the guy who did all those games directs, like, Breath of the Wild and Breath of the Wild 2 and everything. But that same team at Capcom also did Squeak Squad.
Interesting. So, before we go ahead and wrap up, I do want to mention some things for anybody that is going to be playing alongside of us. First being, our goal is to beat 0-2. That is the main goal of the playthrough, obviously. For anybody that does not know, if you are playing this game for the first time, in order to fight 0-2 at all, you need to essentially 100% complete the game. Not as hard as it sounds. This is a fairly easy game. If I could do it when I was 7, you could do it when you are an adult. Don't be like me when I was a kid, when I got the bad ending every time, and just assumed that was how Kirby 64 ended, and didn't fight 0-2 until I was an adult. So don't repeat my mistakes. That's just how it goes.
It's just giving you a pro tip.
Very, very easy to 100% complete is quite a departure from our last game.
A game that aggressively does not want you to 100% complete it. So, I think that ought to do it for a little pre-show talk about Kirby 64. I don't know who's streaming it on the NWR channel. We never talked about that to figure that out.
Hey, Neil, you're getting into streaming, right?
I mean, I'm gonna doubt that you'd be able to do it in our usual time slot, considering you have a human to care for.
I mean, he might be playing with me, so who knows? Maybe I'll start. This could be his breaking into the scene.
That would be a unique perspective we haven't had on the show yet.
That is true. Like, overall, I don't think this will take more than maybe 2 sessions. Honestly, I think if I really, like, knuckled down, I could probably finish this game in 1 session, but I'm not going to make that my goal. If I had to take a guess, it would be 1 session for just getting to the end of the game, and then 1 session for cleaning up all the remaining Crystal Shards, and then fighting 0-2. That's just my theory for how it'll go, at least on my end. So we will have to see. Whoever is streaming it, you will find that at twitch.tv/Nintendo World Report. Thursdays at around 6 p.m. EST usually, sometimes a little earlier, sometimes a little later. You want to keep an eye on our Twitter feed for exact start times. And that Twitter feed can be found at Smashterpieces. You can also find us on Facebook and on YouTube under the same exact names. The Smashterpieces, I don't know why I said names, it's one name. You can also find me on Twitter at TheDebaga. You can find Matt at Grimace Duminis. You can find Neil at nron10, which is a real easy one to find.
Yeah. I would actually say this might have been the era when Kirby 64 came out when I came up with that net handle. Because it was just a really dumb joke off of Enron. So.
Oh my god. I never thought I would hear the name Enron again.
Otherwise, you can find our personal streams at, I am at twitch.tv/DetectiveDobaga. Matt is at twitch.tv/GrimaceTheMenace. Whoever's not on NWR will probably be on their personal channel. I assume. Sometimes it switches between the two because we've lost control of our lives most of the time, but you know how it is. And otherwise, Deal, you got anything you want people to keep an eye on?
I finished editing 27 Metroidvanias on Switch that you can play right now. It is a 27.5-minute video that I've been working on for a while, and we are recording it. It is done. As long as it's not a complete trash fire when someone else on the site watches it, then it will go live tomorrow. So please go support me making long lists of indie games and then putting it to video over the course of too many hours.
And going live tomorrow means that by the time you hear this episode, it's live right now.
Yeah. So, and we also have a lot of other Metroid content coming out in the month of August of 2020. So there's also like a whole big deep dive on the past, present, future of the Metroid series. And we'll have more stuff kind of series overviews of Metroid games, and also the Castlevania series, since it's kind of hand in hand with the whole Metroidvania thing. And then even some stuff about upcoming Metroidvania games. We got interviews with the guys who make an Axiom Verge 2, and the game that you probably haven't heard of but you should check out called Gestalt Steam and Cinder, which I played at PAX East. It was very good, and I played a Steam demo of it and then interviewed the developers, and I'm very excited for whenever that game comes out.
And also, while you're on Twitter, you should also go follow our editor at Pete Speakeasy. Peter is the reason why these episodes take a week to come out and not a month, because I don't have the energy to put them together. So please go check him out. Also check out, I do another show with him called Original Sound Chat, and I think it's pretty good, and you should listen to it. Or not. It's up to you. I'd really prefer you did, though.
You're a great salesman.
And I thank you.
You're why not? Yeah, you got time, right?
What do you got to lose?
It's not like you're going anywhere.
So, I think that's about it, unless either of you got anything else you want to give a shout-out to?
Nah, I'm good. Ready to play some Kirby.
Should be good.
I'm also ready to play some Kirby. I've been looking forward to this one. So, with that, my name is Joe.
My name's Matt.
And I'm Neil.
And we will see you next time for our discussion on Kirby 64, The Crystal Shards.